What's going on, fellas? This is questions number 56, day three in a row of these videos. I've had to go out to the garage because it's quite late. Everybody else is asleep, but I'm staying on top of these daily videos. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to do it a little bit earlier in the day when I'm a little bit more spry, a little bit more charismatic, a little bit more keen, and I can organize these a little bit better. But goddamn, we're sticking to the everyday thing. So we're just going to do a little question answering thing, 3 or 4 questions. We're just going to see how they go. We'll get right into it. The first one is building a home gym setup, tips and advice. What gear did you buy and realize you didn't need as bad as you thought? Or like things that you probably should have bought earlier. So that's a great question. I'm just going to give it you this way. I think I've got a pretty good perspective. I've built my home gym over the last 6 years. I know it looks very well equipped now. But I've had to do this all on quite a restricted budget through college, just accumulating equipment over many, many years. So it looks super advanced, but this was all done on a budget. So I think I've got a very good perspective on, what is going to be good value. And then also I think I've achieved a pretty high level of training in my home gym setting compared to a lot of people. So I've really had to get into the weeds on what is helpful and what isn't. I don't have anything against the guy, but I watch the home gym reviews guy, Coop, and I don't know. It feels like it's kind of out of touch with the everyman. A lot of the things he reviews are purely for college facilities, and he'll still give them like mid reviews, and he'll review a piece of equipment I have and say, oh, it's not that good, it's pretty shoddy. I'm like, I don't know, man, it gets the job done for me. I've deadlifted 815, I've benched 560, and I've loaded some weight on these things and they're not breaking and they get the job done. So I like to think I've got a little bit more of the everyman's perspective of, hey, it's cheap, it gets the job done. I know it's not commercial, but I can't afford commercial. What works well, and then what's so shitty that I break it? Because I think I'm a good litmus test. If I break it, you would probably break it eventually. So that's kind of my perspective. So let's say you've got the basics, right? You've got a rack, you've got a barbell, you've got weights, and you've got what am I missing? An adjustable bench. Those are the basics. We're going to assume you got the basics. Obviously, that opens up a million options. Right off the bat, cool. We can do our squatting. We can do split squats with our foot up on the bench. We can do our hinging, so our deadlifts, our RDLs, our stiff legs. We kind of have that fundamental lower body training checked off right off the bat. I don't think you really need any equipment at all to train your abdominals, but we have a pull-up bar, so now we can add hanging leg raises in to our midsection training routine. We've got all these options for pushing exercises now that we have this adjustable bench press. We've got everything from overhead press to a decline bench press. So chest and shoulders pretty checked off. We've got pull-ups, we've got barbell rows. We can already train our back pretty effectively. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe we need something with a chest support eventually. But that being said, we've got kind of basic nuts and bolts back training. We can do curls, we can do skull crushers. We can kind of train everything pretty well. But what would be my first 3 purchases after we get those basics done? The first one's going to be the glute ham raise, mostly because I think it completes the lower body training very well. So we're going to ignore forward and backward walking because I think that's more of a strongman type thing, and say, okay, well, lower body training kind of is classified into 2 major movements. We've got our squat pattern work and we've got our hinge pattern work. And then I would say that each of those should probably be supplemented with their antagonist, right? So after we do our hinging work, whether it be RDLs or deadlifts, we should probably do the opposite of a hinge. Train the hip flexors, train the abs a little bit, and maintain some semblance of structural symmetry. Because while there aren't any robust studies kind of backing the need for structural symmetry, most of the strong people I know tend to agree that if you do a little pressing, there should be some pulling present. There's no specific ratio that you need to do to keep your shoulders healthy, but this idea of if we're doing something, we should probably do the opposite, just a little bit. So generally speaking, the raw squat I think is predominantly dependent on your knee extension. So to me, the antagonistic work to a squat is going to be some sort of knee flexion. And the glute ham raise opens up that option very nicely. Cool, boom, pow. We've got a good knee flexion based training that we didn't have before. We can get progressively better at them. We can do them on more difficult settings. We can basically just up our technique and make it a lot harder, a lot harder, a lot harder. Eventually, we can even add load to it. Cool. We've kind of got this indefinitely progressible knee flexion-based exercise. Well, what's the opposite of a hip hinge? It's the opposite of a hip hinge, right? Or we're coming forward with the torso. the glute ham raise opens up that possibility as well. So we can do our GHD sit-ups and do the opposite of our deadlifting work afterwards. So cool. It kind of tops off those squats and deadlifts with some glute ham raises and some GHD sit-ups. I think that's kind of a good 2 birds, 1 stone. And it offers you a cool little third bird there, which is the ability to do back extensions, to run up extra hinging volume in your program. Super helpful. Great tool for developing your posterior chain. It's called a glute ham developer, so I would hope so. But I think that between those 3 good nuts and bolts exercises, I think it's definitely worth the price. I have a Rep Fitness one. I've been happy with it. It's not the most sturdy in the world. If you've got the extra cash, I would probably penny up and buy the Rogue one, because you know it'll never break. I'll probably break that one eventually, but it's holding up well, so I can recommend it. The second thing I would buy and the third thing I would buy, I would kind of a tie based on your personal preference. I'm gonna go get that. Kind of a tie based on your personal preference, but again, both of them are just kind of opening up a lot more options. I would either buy a adjustable dumbbell set, or I would buy some sort of cable rigging as my next purchase. The adjustable dumbbells just open up even more options in terms of your arm training, in terms of your shoulder training, ways to load your split squats. They definitely are worth the price, and I would say are pretty early in. If I was reconstructing my home gym, I'd probably buy a pair of adjustable dumbbells, and then the other thing I would buy is some sort of cable rigging. If you're operating on an extreme budget, it can be the kind that attach up to the pull-up bar in your rack. You might not have anything to hold your legs down, so you can't do heavy lat pull downs, but you could do some pull downs, you could do some press downs, you could do some face pulls. It opens up a lot of good options to run up extra upper body volume. But if I were to pick, I would pick probably a plate loaded lat pull down low row combo, because we're gonna be able to do our press downs and our face pulls on it. We're gonna be able to do pull downs. We're gonna be able to do a bunch of different row variations, all for a pretty not so bad price. Because we are supplying the weight ourselves, it ends up not being too pricey. So I think that would be my top 3. Would be go glute ham raise first. I'd probably pick the lat pull down low row combo, the plate loaded one second as far as bang for the buck, and then I'd probably buy some adjustable dumbbells third.